Believe it or not, the most dangerous person in your rap career isn't the A&R who ignores your submissions or the playlist curator who skips your track. It's the version of you sitting in your head, judging every bar before it even leaves your mouth. You see, this invisible enemy has already killed thousands of promising rap careers this year alone, and it's coming for yours next. That's why you can hear two artists with identical technical skills and one sounds completely real while the other sounds painfully fake. In today's episode of How to Rap, we're exposing the mental framework that separates artists who build lasting careers from those who remain permanently stuck, sounding like everyone else, but connecting with no one. Now, before we begin, if you yourself are an artist who's tired of sounding fake and wants to discover your true voice instead of copying others, click the first link in the video description box to get our Rap Voice Mastery course, which comes as a free bonus when you sign up on that page. No doubt this isn't just more YouTube advice, this is the exact framework used by artists who've gone from sounding like everyone else to developing career-making authentic styles. With that said, let's dive into the first insight about why 90% of rappers sound completely fake. There's a silent epidemic spreading through home studios worldwide, killing careers before they even start. You can hear it in the delivery of 90% of emerging rappers, this strained artificial voice that screams, "I'm trying to sound like a rapper," instead of "this is who I really am." It's that uncomfortable gap between who you actually are and the rap persona you're desperately trying to project, and it's the reason listeners scroll past your tracks within the first 5 seconds. The authenticity trap isn't just claiming a lifestyle you don't live, it's that painful disconnect between your speaking voice and your rapper voice that listeners can detect instantly. Your brain has created this idealized version of what a real rapper should sound like, and every time your natural voice doesn't match that image, your mind hits the panic button. You're stuck in this constant negotiation between your actual identity and who you think you should be, using maybe 20% of your vocal potential because pushing beyond that feels inauthentic. Look at Kendrick Lamar's journey. When he dropped Overly Dedicated back in 2010, he was clearly emulating other artists, particularly Lil Wayne. Music critics immediately clocked it, noting how Kendrick came through with this sleepy, low-key, underwhelming with a noticeably dry vocal fry, like he's trying to sound like Lil Wayne rapping at half speed. Kendrick himself admitted in interviews that Wayne influenced a lot of styles and a lot of sounds, and you could hear him wrestling with that influence, trying to find his own voice beneath the imitation. But the breakthrough, the moment Kendrick transformed from talented imitator to genuine innovator, came when he abandoned imitation for introspection on Good Kid, Mad City. Instead of maintaining a consistent Wayne-inspired delivery, Kendrick unleashed different timbres, flows, and character voices to serve his narrative. Not to sound like someone else, but to express his own story more powerfully. The psychology driving this is fascinating. When you're worried about how your voice sounds, your brain activates the same stress responses as public speaking anxiety. Your throat tightens, your breathing gets shallow, your voice naturally constricts, and then you hear that constricted voice, hate how it sounds, and the cycle deepens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps talented rappers trapped in mediocrity, fighting against their own nervous system every time they touch the mic. Many rappers subconsciously believe that if they go all out with their natural voice and get rejected, it's a rejection of their true self. So they create this safety net, a watered-down, imitative version of their voice that feels less risky, thinking if that gets rejected, well, it wasn't really them anyway. This is the ultimate self-sabotage happening below the surface of your consciousness, killing your potential before you even fully express it. Now that we've exposed the voice trap, it's time to confront the content crisis that's making 90% of rappers sound like counterfeit versions of their favorite artists. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That instinct to rap about experiences you've never had because you think your actual life is too boring to build a career on. Every day, thousands of suburban and middle-class rappers are out here crafting elaborate street narratives while their actual lived experiences, the stories that could give their music genuine emotional power, remain untold. Your audience doesn't want your fake stories, they want your real experiences told in a way that makes them feel something, and this fundamental misunderstanding is killing your potential connection with listeners. The authenticity paradox in rap is that the more specific and truthful your content is, the more universal its emotional impact becomes. J. Cole demonstrated this perfectly on 2014 Forest Hills Drive, an album named after his actual childhood home address, where he transformed seemingly ordinary middle-class experiences into content that resonated with millions. On tracks like '03 Adolescence, Cole recounts a conversation with a substance-dealing friend who surprisingly envies Cole's educational opportunities, flipping the script on who has the cooler life rather than fabricating a harder background. Cole openly addresses feeling insecure about his relatively modest upbringing, confessing shame about complaining about his lack of gear when his journey went from trailer park to a front yard with trees in the sky. What makes this approach powerful is what I call the specificity paradox. The more precisely you detail your actual experiences, no matter how ordinary they might seem, the more deeply listeners connect with the emotional core beneath those details. Ultra-specific true details create stronger connections than generic made-up scenarios because listeners can feel the difference between lived experience and imagination. The universal experience framework is your secret weapon here. The understanding that beneath every specific personal story lies universal human emotions that everyone can relate to regardless of their background. You don't need to have sold drugs to connect with audiences. You just need to excavate the emotional essence from your actual experiences. The fear of inadequacy, the desire for respect, the struggle for identity, the pursuit of belonging. These emotional cores are the true currency of connection in rap, not the surface level details of what car you drive or what brand you wear. Cole's approach reveals another crucial insight about authenticity. It's often more powerful to position yourself as the student rather than the teacher, the seeker rather than the expert. Throughout Forest Hills Drive, Cole frames himself not as someone with all the answers, but as someone actively figuring life out alongside his listeners, creating a sense of shared journey that feels inclusive rather than performative. Using his childhood home as a central symbol throughout the project, a property he bought back after it was foreclosed, Cole created a powerful metaphor for authenticity itself. The transformative realization here is that authenticity in rap content doesn't come from having the most dramatic background. It comes from honestly portraying your actual experiences, whatever they may be. Your ordinary life contains extraordinary emotional material when you have the courage to mine it honestly. And this truth is what separates artists with lasting impact from those who flash briefly and fade away. The technical obsession that's destroying your rap career has nothing to do with your flow. It's about the war between your critic and your creator. While you've been fixating on sounding perfect, Tyler the Creator was busy embracing imperfection on Igor, deliberately using pitch-shifted vocals and raw production to create something emotionally undeniable. According to engineer Vic Weinstein, Tyler would often choose his own imperfect sound-alike versions over professional guest vocals, not because they were technically better, but because they carried more emotional truth. The science behind this phenomenon is what I call first take magic, the neurological reality that initial, less rehearsed performances contain more authentic emotional markers that listeners can unconsciously detect. Research confirms your audience's brains actually simulate your emotional state through mirror neurons, and they immediately sense the difference between genuine expression and technical performance. This explains why memorization and over-rehearsal become your worst enemies. When you drill the same bars the same way 100 times, you strip away the micro variations and emotional qualities that signal genuine feeling. But the deeper problem isn't just technical, it's the self-judgment loop that's suffocating your natural voice, that constant internal criticism making you second-guess every take, every performance, every moment on the mic. After working with hundreds of artists, I've discovered the one factor separating those who break through from those permanently stuck in mediocrity: permission-based expression. Megan Thee Stallion demonstrates this principle perfectly. Her commanding delivery doesn't come from technical superiority, but from complete self-permission to exist exactly as she is. Standing 5'10", Megan uses her physical stature to project confidence, creating what analysts call a commanding stage presence that allows her to move with grace and fluidity. She deliberately maintains her Houston accent and Southern style rather than adopting more generically marketable sounds. The permission framework is the practical system that breaks your self-criticism cycle. A three-step mental approach that gives you freedom to express yourself without crippling judgment. First is separation. Consciously recognizing that the critical voice in your head isn't you, but rather a collection of internalized judgments from external sources. Second is redefinition. Actively reframing what good means in your delivery, shifting from external comparison to emotional effectiveness. Third is embodiment. Physically experiencing what it feels like to rap with complete permission by creating specific practice conditions that bypass your internal critic. The breakthrough comes when you realize expression isn't something you achieve through technical perfection. It's something you allow by removing the barriers of self-judgment currently blocking your natural voice. While you're worried about being judged for showing too much emotion, listeners are actually connecting more deeply with vulnerability than with flawless delivery. Every time you judge yourself while performing, you activate a neurological stress response that constricts your voice, stiffens your delivery, and creates exactly the disconnected sound that listeners immediately reject. The permission revolution doesn't just improve your rap voice, it transforms your entire relationship with creative expression, freeing you to create from a place of genuine power rather than fear. Your unique voice isn't a technique to master, it's the only thing that will make you stand out in a world of cookie-cutter rappers who are all trying to sound like someone else instead of embracing who they actually are. With that said, hopefully you found this video useful, and if you'd like to get even more personalized coaching, click the first link in the video description below. Thanks for joining us for another episode of How to Rap in Peace.